Well, if you thought losing to the Jets was bad, what about the Titans? Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, then please do me a favour and hit that subscribe button. So, the Cleveland Browns actually did it. We joked all week about, it'd be quite funny if the Browns lost this game to the 1-11 Tennessee Titans. They actually did lose this game to the 2-11 Titans, as virtue of the Cleveland Browns being on their schedule this year. If the Cleveland Browns weren't on their schedule this year, probably would have stayed at one win all season. But they get to play the Browns this year, and they get their second win of the season, 31-29. A game that, I can't even make it even funnier. I try and make jokes about, the start of these videos and for these games. This game is funny enough as it is. I don't even really need to add anything to it. What an absolutely hilarious game. What an hilarious way to lose to the Tennessee Titans. Just a funny one all round. I'll be completely honest. You can lose games in worse ways. Maybe if this was a 10-3 football team, or well, I suppose maybe more kind of like a 7-5 team or something like that, and we were pushing for a playoff spot, then yes, obviously losing a game on a hilariously botched 2-point conversion would be quite bad. But as many people have said the last couple of weeks, this was a 3-9 football team. I don't think too many people were that concerned about the results in these games the rest of the season, and more so what we see in them. And obviously, when that's the case, there's not many funnier ways to lose this game. So this was hilarious. The Browns actually lost to the Tennessee Titans. A game that, we got nearly 60. 60 points in this game. So I don't think anyone expected this game to have that many points. I think the under was probably smashed for this game by many bettors, and we got points in this game. We got some moments, shall we say, in this game. So if you're going to lose to the Titans, at least they did it in the most hilarious way possible. And that's what we're going to talk about. Obviously, this game did not start very well. The Browns defense just absolutely got gashed, especially in the run game on the Titans' opening drive. That was their first opening drive score of the season. And obviously they got that on the Browns. And then, the Browns were able to get back in it. This was a back and forth game. And then obviously the Titans were able to build that lead, build a 14-point lead in the second half of this game. The Browns were able to get back into the game. Shedeur Sanders coming alive in this game. And obviously, get the first touchdown that they then tried again to run. That was the first touchdown is when then obviously Shedeur botched the snap on the 2-point conversion, which resulted in obviously that being a failed attempt, which meant they were down 8. They were then able to miraculously get the ball back. The defense doing their job on both occasions to get the ball back for the offense, and they were able to score. And then they obviously went for the most hilarious 2-point conversion I've ever seen. They took Shedeur Sanders off the field. I'm sure Jacina Anderson is going to have a field day with that one. And obviously tried to run a gadget play that absolutely... the first 2-point conversion, obviously Shedeur Sanders botched the snap, and that's what resulted in that failing. And then the second 2-point conversion, Quinshon Judkins absolutely botched the handoff. And we can laugh at the play. It was hilarious, but, obviously we'll wait till the All-22 comes out to get a better idea. But I have seen a still where if that handoff is done, is done correctly, that probably is a walk-in touchdown for Gage Laverdane. So as much as we want to clown the play call, it did look like the play call was going to work. But unfortunately, Quinshon botched the handoff. He was forced to run around tried to throw the ball, and obviously that failed. The Browns lost this game 31-29. I've seen a lot of people ask why the Browns didn't get a chance at the end of this game with a second left. I don't actually know if they did it or the refs just like ended the game because they were going to do it. But obviously the Titans could have just knelt the ball down on fourth down, even with it being fourth down, because the ball would have hit, the clock would have hit zero when they snapped the ball. So even them turning the ball over on downs, that would have obviously ended the game. So the Browns obviously were not going to get a chance to make any return at this game. But just in a hilarious way to lose a game. As I said, you start pretty terribly in this game. You're able to get back into it, and then obviously, kind of struggle again a little bit there. The Titans were able to build a 2-score lead, 14-point lead. You're able to get back into this game. You scored the 2 touchdowns that you needed to obviously get back into this game, tie this game. But unfortunately, the 2-point conversions, I think, something that has been a problem for this team most of the year, and obviously a lot of those short yardage situations. This has not been the same fourth down team. All those kind of, gotta have down and distances they've struggled with, and a lot of people will criticise the decision to even go for the 2-point conversion, because obviously when you're down 14, you could have just scored that touchdown, kicked the field goal, and then obviously you would have just needed a touchdown and a field goal to then tie the game, or a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. I am in the belief that when you're a 3-9 football team, you should always try and win the game. Overtime does absolutely nothing for this team or for this game. So you're going to go for 2 points on one of those touchdowns. I think that's the right thing to do. And you should more often than not do that on the first attempt, because if you do fail, you then know on the next one you have to have it, versus obviously the other way around. So I'm not too annoyed about that, about obviously them going for 2. I don't think the play, don't get me wrong, the play call wasn't the worst. We can clown the play call, obviously it looked hilarious, but again, obviously I'll wait fully to see the All-22 to confirm it, but it did look like if the play was handled how it was supposed to be, then it would have worked. But with that being said, I didn't like the decision to take Shedeur Sanders off the field in that moment, because even if you don't have any faith in him at all or whatever, he earned the right, he earned the opportunity with getting those 2 touchdowns at the end to at least have the chance to tie this game with that 2-point conversion. So not the going for 2, not even the hilarious play call that annoys me really the most out of that. It was more so taking Shedeur off the field. Other scenarios, I wouldn't really care. I'm not Jacina Anderson that's going to moan about the Browns running the Wildcat. But I do think in that situation, as I said, you're a 3-9 team. I'll be honest, I didn't really give a fuck about the result of this game. I don't think many people did. I don't think the fucking team did. So in that situation, let's at least give the guy that just went down and got you 2 touchdowns to, give him a chance and an opportunity in that moment. So that is the one thing that obviously I did have a gripe with. But the game overall, as I said, hilarious. Let's obviously talk about Shedeur Sanders. This was his best game as a pro. There is absolutely no doubt about that. There were some flashes in this game, some really great spots in this game. The throw to Jerry Jeudy, the throw to Harold, 2 throws to Harold Fanning, right on the breadbasket, only where Fanning could get it. I saw a lot from, I saw more from Shedeur in this game than I did in all other snaps that he has had for this team this year combined. He was decent in this game. I would say borderline. He was good in this game. Obviously, the interception was a boneheaded play. That was a terrible interception. It's annoying because he had a really great throw to Harold Fanning, one of the throws that I just mentioned. Really good throw, and then just decides to throw the most terrible interception, threw it into double coverage, an absolute boneheaded decision. But again, this is a rookie. You can obviously put some of it to that. But interception wasn't. Interception wasn't great. He obviously had a couple of plays where he missed some guys. There was one play where he ran it. He did get the first down, but he's there celebrating after getting the first down when he he had a wide receiver wide open that if he had saw, then that would have been a touchdown. Had another play where he missed a guy. But overall, that's just nitpicking at this point. I think this was Shedeur's best game as a pro. As I said, there was areas to be impressed with. I mean, don't get me wrong. Yes, we should obviously preference, but this is one of the worst defenses in the NFL that Shedeur Sanders was going up against. So, when we talk about Shedeur Sanders versus Cam Ward in this game, it's not exactly apples for apples. It's more apples and oranges because, Shedeur Sanders, as I said, was going up against one of the worst defenses in the NFL, whereas Cam Ward was, of course, going up against one of the best defenses in the NFL. But in the end of the day, you can only play what is in front of you, and Shedeur Sanders played it to a level that, higher than we've seen from him. He showed flashes. Don't get me wrong. As would with not just Shedeur, as it would be with anyone, one performance, of course, is not going to be enough for you to say, this is the guy. And obviously, one performance against the Tennessee Titans in a game that you lost is obviously not going to be enough to say that. But when we're evaluating Shedeur Sanders in the situation that he is in, a somewhat unfair situation for him, obviously being a guy that's essentially getting 6 games to 6 games to prove and show your team why they shouldn't draft a quarterback in the first round the next year. I've said all along it's an unfair situation, but that's the situation that he's in, and obviously I think he took us the right step forward in this game with his performance. Don't get me wrong, still quite a few missed throws, quite a few missed passes. Was 23 for 42, so only just over 50%. Obviously, pretty much in line with what he's been this year, completing around 50% of his passes, which of course is not going to cut it in the NFL. You cannot be an NFL starter that's only completing 50% of your passes. But 364 yards passing in this game, career day for Shedeur Sanders. What quarterback not named Joe Flacco or Jameis Winston has had over 300 yards, let alone over 350 yards in this offense in the last couple of seasons? I don't think there's any. So already, in his third start, already in that company, obviously the 3 touchdowns in the air, the 1 touchdown on the ground, so 4 total touchdowns, 29 rushing yards in total. So this was a good game for Shedeur Sanders. This is what you want to see when we're talking about the evaluation, when we're talking about what we should see from Shedeur Sanders, and obviously that we can take going forward. These are the things we want to see. It's being able to move the ball in this offense that we've not seen this season. He's had more 30-yard passes and completions now than all the other Browns quarterbacks this year combined. He clearly brings energy to this offense. He clearly brings life to this offense. He's building a good connection with Judy, even after obviously their thing last week. He's building a good connection with Harold Fannin. He's getting guys involved. So I was impressed with this game. As I said, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to do my next video now saying that's it, franchise quarterback. We don't need to draft a quarterback, all of that stuff. But in terms of, as I said, the situation is in, the evaluation process that he's in, he took a step in the right direction today. Had some mistakes, that's to be expected as a rookie, but overall I was impressed with Shedeur in this game. Staying on the offense as a whole, obviously the Browns were unable to run the ball in this game. That was obviously a disservice to them, and something that they're going up against a bad defense, yes, but when you can't run the ball and you are asking your rookie quarterback to throw the ball 42 times, and he's coming through and he's completing passes, he's getting over 350 yards, three touchdowns in the air, 2 touchdowns at the end that in any other situation would be enough to tie that game. You've got to take your hat off and obviously give credit where credit is due to Shedeur. Harold Fannin with his best day as a pro, 8 catches, 114 yards, 1 touchdown in this game. As I said, building a good connection with Shedeur Sanders. He was the most targeted player for the Browns in this game with 11 targets. He is now, I think, only a handful of receptions away from being the, not just tight end, but Browns rookie receiving record for receptions in a season. And he has, in this game, now passed the record for most yards by a rookie tight end for the Browns in a season. So, I've said enough nice things about Harold Fanning. This is a guy that was my draft crush all through the process. Someone that, every year I have a draft crush and my team never drafts them. This was one of the first years where my team actually drafted my draft crush. I was so happy with it. No matter what people try to say about his frame, whatever, I watched this guy play and I was convinced that this is an NFL tight end and a good NFL tight end, and he continues to prove that. This is a guy that it doesn't matter if it's 1, 2, 3 guys that meet him, he is going to break that first tackle every single time, pick up extra yards, safe hands, obviously, clearing up some of those drops that he had earlier on. Harold Fanning is so exciting. He is only 21 years old. Will be 21 years old until next summer. We have our future tight end in Harold Fanning. I am sure of that. Jerry Jeudy in this game I mentioned earlier had a bit of a bounce back game. Three catches for 76 yards. Obviously the biggest being that 60-yard touchdown run that he absolutely routed the DB up in that route, and obviously one of the first times we've seen that this season from Jeudy. But it's frustrating because that's what he can do. So that's why I get annoyed with Jeudy, because he has these bad performances, but I know that he can do stuff like this. I know that he can be a not just great but borderline elite route runner. So it gets really frustrating when he has bad performances like he has had this season. But obviously good to see him obviously with a positive in this game. And then Dylan Sampson, in the receiving game, showing you what he can offer in this game as well. Shout out to David Njoku for the touchdown grab. Obviously hurt his knee, got ruled out for the rest of the game. So respect to him for actually being able to hold on to that ball, even obviously despite hurting himself. And obviously hopefully that's not too serious. Myles Garrett got his sack, so you guys know the deal. I'm going home with something. It doesn't matter if the Browns lose. If Myles gets his sack, I'm going home with something. I'm obviously partly joking, but I'm kind of not. Myles gets to 20 sacks on the season, 20 sacks in 13 games. I think only him and Reggie White have ever done that in NFL history, 20 sacks through 13 games of a season. He's now one of 13 players in NFL history to ever have 20 sacks on a season. He's now the first. We know he's the first because he already held the Browns record with 19. He's the first Cleveland Brown in Browns history to get to 20 sacks. 4 games to go, 3 sacks to beat the record. It's just a matter of when, not if. And maybe we would have liked to see a few more in this game, going up against a pretty poor offensive line, and obviously the most sacked quarterback in the NFL. But credit to the Titans in this game. They basically put their whole offensive game plan on stopping Myles Garrett. They had 3-4 guys on his side every single time. It was kind of like last season and the season before, watching this one with just their entire focus on that offensive line was on Myles Garrett. Obviously Malik Collins being out freed up a little bit of pressure in the middle that they were able to just slide 2-3 guys over to Myles every single time. And even with that being the case, Myles was still able to get the sack despite being doubled and triple teamed pretty much every single snap, and that was the only sack that the Browns had in this game. So Myles gets to 20 sacks. I'm happy, and obviously I'm going home with something. 4 games left, three sacks to go. Let's hope he can break it sooner rather than later. Carson Schwarzenegger, once again, I think for what is now, we've played 13 games. This is at least 9 games, 10 games where he's led the team in tackles. 13 tackles, 6 solo tackles. Didn't have any tackles for loss or sacks in this game. He was actually taken out of this game at one point to be evaluated for a concussion, but thankfully came back in, obviously passed that concussion test. So, just continues his, I said it last week, all he has to do is just not have a bad game. It's his award to win now, the Defensive Rookie of the Year awards. So if he just can keep having these games where, even, as I said, as long as you don't have a bad game, even if he doesn't get the sacks and the TFLs, if he can just keep having these games with 10 plus tackles, leading his team in tackles every week, that award is his to lose. Devin Bush, shout out to him in this game. 9 tackles. Obviously had the interception. He had a great sequence where he had a great pass breakup, and in the very next play had the interception that he obviously nearly returned all the way. So did he return it all the way, or did he turn it all the way? I can't even remember now at this point, but there's been that many games in between my head. But Devin Bush continues his good play. I've said this every other week at this point now. I think at this point it should probably be a discussion of what does a Devin Bush extension look like, because I'll be completely honest, seeing JOK doing the guitar smash at the start of the game was a cool moment, but then kind of made me think, I'm kind of more worried that this guy is never going to play again now. And if that is the case, obviously having Carson is massive, but bringing Devin Bush back, who this guy is still only 27 years old. I've said it in previous week. He's turned his career around in Cleveland. He's playing some of the best football of his career here. And because of his, court date that he has this offseason, what was probably going to look like, you would have had to pay him pretty decent money. You could probably get him slightly cheaper. Obviously, him already being in this building, does another team want to take that on? Obviously, knowing that he has a court date, I'm not entirely sure. So the Browns should hopefully be able to get something worked out with Devin Bush to keep him here at least for next season, because he continues to impress pretty much every single week. Grant Delpit probably had one of his worst games of the season in this game. He wasn't that great. The Browns' defensive line overall wasn't able to generate that much pressure outside of Myles Garrett. The defense was not poor or by any means, but this certainly was not one of their better performances, and this is why I don't think this is a game where any of those defensive players can go into the press conference after this game and start blaming other areas of the team, because I think they also contributed to obviously the team losing this game, giving up over 150 yards rushing to Tony Pollard, who did absolutely fuck all season, and then comes into this game against one of the best rushing defenses in the NFL, and you give up 161 yards and 2 touchdowns on 25 carries. So this was probably one of the only games this year where you could argue that the offense was arguably the best part of the it wasn't. It was the defense, let's be real. The amount of times where they had to get stops and they were able to get stops, they were able to do that. But overall, this wasn't as consistent of a performance from this defense as we have seen. But if there's one thing that is for certain, and it is usually the case every week, and that's that the special teams was the worst unit, because Bubba Ventrone is still the coach of the special teams. That is neither here nor there. I'm going to leave it at that before I get annoyed and go on a rant, like I seem to be doing every single week with these special teams. The sooner that Bubba Ventrone is not on this team, the better. But obviously, that was the game. As I said, look, the Browns lost this game. But in the end of the day, if I said to you that the Browns improved their draft position, Shedeur Sanders showed flashes, you might have taken it. I probably would have taken it. I said a couple of weeks ago now, I'm not that interested in the result of this game, the scoreline of these games. I'm not a tank guy at the start of the year, but at the end of the day, when you're 3-9 going into this game, what is the difference between going 3-15 and going 5-12? I don't think there is that much difference. The 3 biggest things that I was obviously looking for, Myles Garrett breaking the sack record, Carson Schwarzenegger winning Defensive Rookie of the Year, and seeing what we have in Shedeur Sanders. Anything outside of that didn't really matter, and if we could improve our draft position in doing so and in achieving those things, that was always going to be the best case scenario. So the Browns sit here at 3-10. Best case scenario is that they probably don't win another game, but Shedeur Sanders proves that he can be the quarterback of the future. You then get, potentially the first overall pick. You get to get the bidding war and trade back whoever wants the quarterback, because you don't need one, or obviously you end up taking it. But at this point, draft position is obviously what we're going to be talking about. If you get annoyed about that, I am sorry, but unfortunately that is just where we are at. I said going into this game that if the Browns lost this game, it would genuinely make things very, very interesting in terms of the top of that draft order. that is the case, because the Titans, who have had the first overall pick all season, no longer have the first overall pick. The New York Giants now currently own the first overall pick. The Tennessee Titans own the second overall pick, and Las Vegas, who are currently playing the Broncos, actually started quite well against the Broncos before they shit the bed. They're obviously in the third pick. The Browns now sit in the fourth pick, and just to remind everyone that the Browns own the tiebreaker over every team. No one is going to get as low as a strength of schedule tiebreaker as the Browns this year because of how shit the AFC North is. That is a great thing for the Browns. That means, because of the weird way that the NFL does it, it's not head-to-head. It is first and foremost strength of schedule tiebreakers that determines draft order. So if the Browns finish on the same amount of wins as anyone, they will have the highest pick out of all of those teams. There's 3 teams with 2 wins. That is the Giants, that is the Titans, who obviously we just lost to, and that is Vegas. The Giants still have to play the Commanders and Vegas. So one of those teams is going to get to 3 wins. Maybe more than 3 wins. But one of those teams is going to get to 3 wins. If the Browns don't win another game, they then jump that team. Tennessee Titans, they're probably going to fall back, arse over backwards into one more win this season. They get to 3 wins, you jump them. So Vegas is the one team that I think is going to be the hardest to jump, but just because I just don't see them winning another game this season. But there is every possibility now that the Browns have not just a top 3 pick, a top 2 pick, and maybe even the first overall pick. I understand, people are going to say, well, how are you going to talk about, that Shedeur Sanders showed flashes in this game and then obviously still be firsting for the first overall pick for a Mendoza or a Dante Moore, etc. That's just kind of where we're at. As I said, Shedeur's not shown me enough to make me not draft one of these quarterbacks. If he does in the last 4 weeks, great. I get to then use that first overall pick to trade back or take, Arvell Reese. But if he doesn't, then obviously you're in that position. I'd rather have options at this point. And as I said, this game has completely opened things up on the top of the order of the draft order. This was the one game left on the Browns' schedule that they were going to be favoured in. They are not going to be favoured in any of their remaining games. Who have we got? The Bears, the Bengals, the Steelers, and is it the Ravens we got to play again? No, we played the Ravens twice, haven't we? Bears, Bengals, Steelers, 49ers. We are not going to be favoured. No, what am I doing, guys? I can't even remember the schedule. Either way, we are not going to be favoured in our last 4 games. It's not, it's probably likely that the Browns don't win another game this season. That means they finish with 3 wins. That means no matter, even if the Saints, Commanders, Jets, Arizona, even if none of those teams win another game, the Browns will have a higher pick than those guys. And then obviously the Giants, Tennessee, and Vegas, you'd just be hoping that, all of those teams would just win one more game and you would have the first overall pick. So again, I know people don't like talking about it, but we just lost to the fucking Titans. And that has now opened up a real possibility of the Browns not just getting a top 3 pick, but getting the first overall pick in the draft. And at this point, what else do we have to talk about? I know, I am sorry, but it's just where we're at. But as I said, to sum it all up, the Browns lost to the Titans in hilarious fashion. Shedeur Sanders showed flashes, showed things to get excited about in what was a career performance for him. Myles Garrett got his sack, so I'm going home with something. And the Browns improved their draft position and all but confirmed a top 3 pick, really, in the NFL draft. So, again, as I said, if you lost to the Titans in this fashion and you were going for a playoff spot, everything in my flat would be broken right now and my TV would be broken and I would probably not even be able to do this video. But with the situation the Browns are in, to improve your draft order, your draft positioning, get the Myles Garrett sack, and see some flashes out of Shedeur Sanders. In the end of the day, guys, it could be worse. It could be worse. That's just where we're at as Browns fans, I suppose. But that will do it for this video. Got plenty of stuff to talk about this coming week, obviously, with Shedeur, with obviously Deshaun Watson, all of that stuff as well. So obviously keep posted on those videos. Let me know your thoughts in the comments on this game. Are you someone that thinks, oh, this losing to the Titans is enough, we now have to sack everyone? Or are you someone like me that thinks, I don't think they actually cared if they lost to the Titans or not? And they're obviously more focused on what that draft position is. Let me know your thoughts on all of that in the comments. If you do enjoy my content, please drop this video a like, hit the subscribe button. It's free, but it really, really helps out my channel. You can also check the links in the description to see where you can follow and interact with me on social media. As I always say, I'm trying to build a community of Cleveland Browns fans, and even if that means I only get to talk to one fan a day, I'm happy because I'm talking to the best fan base in the world. Thanks again for watching, guys. Enjoy this week. Enjoy the most hilarious conversations on Twitter that I'm sure are going to come from this game. But, as always, most importantly, as much as we some weeks don't want to say it, go Browns.